Yeah.
And how do you treat people in such a way that they actually do their best independent thinking?
Sure.
And so that piqued my interest, and I started reading her books and doing her courses. And so I'm now a certified time to think facilitator, essentially teaching people how to treat each other in such a way that you create these conditions for people to do their fine, cutting edge thinking.
Yeah.
And then I've been studying that work ever since, and now I bring it into the actuarial education system as well in many ways. And I'm also pursuing a coaching qualification in that field. So
okay. I mean, I did want to sort of double click on that, because that's when I had met you for the first time, when we were doing a time to think workshop as a UCT department. And so I'd be so interested to hear your views of how you bring that into your teaching, and how you bring that into your engagement with students, and how you've seen it be beneficial.
Yeah, it's a very big question, and it's something I'm very excited about. So in related to a thinking environment, so a thinking environment is all about how can we be in the world in such a way that we, think well for ourselves, but also facilitate independent thinking wherever we go.
Yeah.
So in our students, that means getting them not to think like us.
Yes.
Getting them to think for themselves, getting them to approach problems that they see in the world in their own unique way. And so I teach my students some of these skills, teach them how to listen, how to give attention, how to ask questions, how their own mind can be ignited through questions.
Yes.
And then related to that, I also teach them a little bit about things like the growth mindset, which is Carol Dweck's kind of philosophy that you can grow into your ability as opposed to believing that, my set of skills and intelligence is capped or is fixed at who I am. So we have quite a few of those kind of discussions, and we've actually built it into our curriculum now.
Yeah.
So some of our third-year courses, for example, now include this kind of leadership training and exposure. So just to give you an example, in our tutorials, we often have breakout sessions where we have group discussions or smaller group discussions, or what we call thinking pairs, where we actually practice giving attention to each other. My third-year students also design agendas. So for every one of our lectures in third year, students they actually do the work. They design agendas. They learn how to transform the agenda into questions for the rest of the class. They run opening rounds, which is ways of getting the whole class to participate. So they kind of learn how to live these components, what we call components of a thinking environment.
Yeah.
They are components like appreciation, like equality. So, for example, when we have external guest speakers, we kind of have a system of how we appreciate each other.
Yes.
Our third years will know it's the responsibility of them to appreciate the external guests they teach. So it kind of filters through to our whole system, hopefully.
Yes.
So even, for example, in our mentorship program at the university, we work very closely with ASABA, which is the Association of South African Black Actuarial Professionals. And we run a mentorship program across all the years. And so our mentors also undergo this kind of training as part of the program. So those are some of the ways.
And was that something that you embedded into the program from the beginning? Because you were, if I understand correctly, part of that initial team that was building the actuarial science course at UJ. And did your team sort of get on board and they completely bought into it? Or was it something that you almost had to show like a proof of concept in order to get everyone to buy in?
To be honest, we haven't really quite had the discussion yet about how to turn the whole system into a thinking environment.
Got you.
So at the moment, these discussions are happening between me and my students. So for now, but that's a really good question, because if I want this to be systemic, then then I need to elevate that conversation so that everyone's on board. But in principle, yes, we discuss it, among the people involved in the actuarial program, and so they have a sense of what I'm doing. And then for the students, it's interesting that the first time I taught the third year class, which was in 2020, there were 9 students in the class, and they didn't even know each other's names. Only 9 of them. Yeah.
Sure.
And so for somebody coming from the business world, I said to them, this is not great, because these are people who you're going to have, a professional relationship with in the future, and the corporate world.
People you can use now and help each other in your current space right now.
Exactly. So so we actually did some training, and that's where I first had, the kind of impetus to really get going with incorporating this work more fully into the program. Because at the time I was a new lecturer, I thought, what am I doing trying to bring in these
I resonate with that.
ways?
I resonate with that.
But it worked out great. I mean, one of them jokingly asked me, "What's your objective here? Do you want us all to be best friends by the end of this year?" And that wasn't the objective, but the objective was to learn about the importance of relationships.
Yeah, and also how relationships create an environment, and then you sort of function within that environment, which is actually something you learn in a lot of your actuarial exams, like your later exams. So it's not too far removed from a logic that you access when trying to qualify.
So true, yeah.
So you've also spoken about your approach to teaching and how you want to make it more interactive using different senses. Also, you've spoken to wanting to get students into the workplace and getting exposure in the workplace prior to sort of just being employed. Speak to that. How did that develop, and what are some of the sort of key learnings that you had along the way?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, and I love how you describe it, learning with all your senses. It's a beautiful way of putting it, because we think with our full body, and our full feelings, and our full life experience, and our full language. And so there are, probably hundreds of different ways and languages that we use in the way we think. And so I encourage my students to kind of flex all of those different muscles. So I get them to, watch some interesting psychology videos, if it is, or learn leadership skills like the thinking environment, and very importantly, talk to other actuaries. And so vacation work is a very good way where students can learn some of the concepts that they're studying at university, but learning it in a way that allows them to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, to feel what it's like for the results to be used, to present to other actuaries, and or present to actuaries and other students. And so vacation work is a natural way in the actuarial context to give our students access to the real world thinking. And the feedback so far has been very encouraging.
Okay.
So students are saying that they now have context about what they're doing. And also they either say, I worked in a field that I didn't quite like, and so now I know I might try
a different field.
And some of them are saying, I got to work on Excel, which I'm only really getting to, do in detail in third year. And so... so it's like all sorts of augmentation of traditional learning. And so I think it's all about, what we're trying to encourage is all about moving beyond the traditional classroom walls and having this more holistic approach to learning, which will hopefully translate into learning being more tangible. And concepts becoming clearer because you have a bigger context, but also very importantly, that you are building a good kind of social networking structure and relationship building set of skills as you approach your studies as well.
And so tell me, the program, the AIM program, how exactly is it structured and who is it available to? Like, can a first-year student do it, or do you have to be at a specific level of study in order to access that experience?
Great. So the AIM program was developed to offer eventually offer every actuarial student in the country this opportunity. So it's open to all students from all universities. If you're studying actuarial science, you can access the program. We do not open it up to first years yet. That may be something we consider in the future, but for now we don't.
Makes sense.
And it's primarily targeted at the third and fourth years.
Okay.
But where there's space, we take in some second years as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And as I said, it's free. It's open to anyone. And if you apply for the program and you get accepted, we don't have huge barriers to entry. But we do have an application form that requires you to show that you're being proactive, put in some effort. And if you get accepted into the program, then you spend 2 weeks working with an actuary and a group of 2 to 3 other students in your team. And you spend roughly 4 hours a day. We kind of say a minimum of 4 hours a day for those 2 weeks. And you work on a real world project. You get real world data. You get a brief from your business owner. We call the project owner the business owner. And you get to run meetings and develop the solution to the problem, present the problem at the end of 2 weeks. And we do all of this in a very structured way. So part of that structure includes a minimum amount of training. So we offer a few masterclasses on how to communicate, how to listen, how to function in the business world, what's expected of you. And then there are also other support mechanisms built in. So for example, we have regular feedback opportunities. We have, in addition to your business owner, you get to meet other actuaries in the program. So you get to schedule what we call student swap sessions, where a business owner gets to meet the students of another team and gets to tell them their life story. Things like that.
And you said that it's obviously you've got quite good feedback from students. What feedback have you got from the corporates? Because they're obviously another stakeholder in this system and in this experience. How have they experienced the AIM program?
They've been very happy with it.
Good.
And it was one of our biggest risks, actually, because we were worried about, will we constantly get the supply of actuaries?
Yes, because they could sort of say, actually it's a bit much to do every year.
Exactly. But the feedback and the way we've run it, I guess, is making it very easy for them. And the feedback we've received from them is that the program was very easy. You essentially commit to about 1 hour per day for the 2 weeks. And then we help with a whole lot of structure. So we set up kind of the opening meetings, the closing meetings. We guide you on how to set up your project brief. We're with you kind of the whole step of the way as a business owner. So they feel like they can just pretty much pitch up and be present. And in the process, they get to build relationships with these students. They get to connect with fresh thinking. So they're actually giving feedback that they are getting a lot of value for themselves from it. And so we're now very fortunate to have this constant supply of actuaries. So far we've put about 250 students through the program, supervised by roughly about 60 to 70 actuaries. And most of them are saying, we'll keep coming back.
Sure. And I think also for them, it's an employment opportunity, right? Like, so if you're engaging with the student in their latter years of study and you really like the way they think, the way they function, etc., you can kind of, mark them down as a potential future employee, which is and you can see you get more data on how they actually work as opposed to just an interview, right? So I guess it is very beneficial to that stakeholder as well.
Yeah, it's such a good point, and we've seen quite a few students actually get their jobs.
I mean, some of my honest students last year, they kind of said that the AIM program had really also helped them in the interview process. Even if they weren't going to a corporate that was connected to the AIM program, in just that they had more review of how business worked, which you don't necessarily get from the black and white notes, And I think that it also gave them confidence. I think it gives students confidence to be like, well, I have presented on this thing, and so I actually can add something here. And I also got good input from a qualified actuary who actually works in the space. And so it makes them feel like they have more credibility than just sort of a host of exemptions.
And that's a really good point about the feedback as well, is that we also position AIM and design the program such that it is a safe space to fail.
Yes.
So we encourage students to do this learning by doing thing.
They're not penalized, right? It's not like you can fail the AIM program.
Yes.
Obviously, you need to put in the effort, etc. But there's no sort of like